reopen the committee meeting and welcome Dana and Trudy for our operations update. Morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee members, not committee members. I'm here today to speak about PT operations report. With your permission, Chair, I would like to take the report as read and highlight a few things.
Yep.
Firstly, please allow me to tell wrap up of this financial year's PD performance. Throughout this financial year, both bus and rail patronage have been growing. Bus quarterly patronage has recorded 1 million in third quarter last year. And the same for the rail. Rail has recorded 20,000 quarterly patronage. The overall PD patronage, I mean the annual patronage, is on the track to achieve 4 million. We are quite sure we exceed 4 million this financial year. And looking at TA, Wiper has been demonstrating a high growth rate for patronage, which is around 50% every quarter. This patronage boost was achieved by the significant improvements for the Wiper PD services, such as doubled service frequency and full electrification of the bus fleet. Now I'm talking about the highlights of the first quarter this year. This quarter, overall regional bus patronage has increased by 3% from the same quarter last year. Again, Wiper has been growing strongly, while other services are slowing down. That was reported in February this year. This is influenced by the fare increase that took place in July last year. And also we haven't made major improvements for the regional and the city network services. Exception is Wiper. The full year patronage has reduced by 18%. This is because of the month-long closure in January. Bus fare revenue has increased by 15%. Also, rail fare is increased by 15% despite of the 1 month closure. Lastly, I would like to bring a positive news. We are engaging a media agency to manage the sales of the bus back spaces. The tender revealed that we can make significantly higher revenues than we initially expected. Currently, we are shaping the contract and we will commence the contract in this month. That's it. Back to Chair.
Thanks, Kana. Any questions? Oh, yeah, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. It's more of a comment, really. Just thrilled to see the increase in patronage at Waipa in Tuamutu and Cambridge. And I acknowledge the leadership, I guess, of the Regional Council in allowing us to have these amazing double-decker electric buses and increasing the frequency of the services, because I'm sure that is what is behind it. You know, it just makes sense now that we've got such great coverage of, you know, different schedules and things, that people will use the buses more and they are responding appropriately, which is really great news. So I want to acknowledge staff's role in that, and hopefully, you know, it will just continue to climb. You know, now that we've got a more of a focus on fare box returns, I don't know if any work's been done on whether or not those routes that are now serviced by electric buses actually provide a better return than diesel or petrol versions of the same kind of route. I don't know. I know that there's a bigger capital investment in the electrics, but you could argue once it is actually set up, be interesting to know whether or not it makes economic sense, and that also would justify trying to get more frequent coverage in those routes too, because we can show that if they're available, people will use them. And I presume too, it's a nicer ride as well. Like some of the feedback I've had from some of my locals is that they're nice buses to ride in and they're quiet and things like that. Yeah. And whether or not it's sort of a virtuous circle that, you know, once you've got it, it'll just build and build. Yeah, thanks.
It's clear. David.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I spent longer than I care to admit on page 168 on the large table on bus patronage. Longer than I care to admit on actually figuring out that the percentage changes were comparing the quarters of each year. So it wasn't to the previous quarter, it was to the same quarter as last year, which makes sense. So I was wondering if possible whether those quarters and those columns could be color coded with a different colored background, so it was obvious where quarter one was through the table, so it was easier to track and progress. But thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report and so much in here. Very exciting that we're now on Snapchat and TikTok. Very cool. I might have to go on those platforms and check it out. Hey, well done on the school holiday campaign as well. Yeah, that's a fantastic reach with that many people using it and new visitors as well to the website. Yeah, I think that's really important to do this year, especially with the rail closures over the school holidays as well. So, yeah, well done on that initiative. And yeah, just really good reach of different demographics, you know, young people, students, et cetera, corporates. Paragraph 18, concession management. Really exciting to see lots more businesses are using the offering and wanting to extend it as well. So just my question would be around how do we sort of reach more corporates and get more people wanting to use our fantastic services, and just wondering about central government agencies as well, because I know that some councils also offer for their staff. So yeah, just wondering local government, central government and corporates, where we're sort of, what our plan is with those.
Yeah, look, through the chair and in response, Councillor Strange, the team have done significant work on and are shaping up actually at the moment a program of what that will look like. And it's underpinned by our passenger experience roadmap strategy and the pockets of work that have come through on those individual pillars that piece of work is identified. So yeah, just I guess in brief, we would be able to share that with you in due course. We have actually had some, what do we say, proactive sort of requests from certain corporates, which we are fielding at the moment. I won't share any names, but yeah, we're definitely out there in the you know, in that public space, in that corporate arena. So yeah, look forward to bringing back a more sort of structured plan of how we engage going forward to convert.
Oh, that's fantastic. And yeah, great to see the partnership still going with some of the groups. Just my question would be around how, we used to have a partnership with the hospital, especially given their parking issues, and patients could get 50% off if they tagged off at the hospital. I understand that that has now stopped. Just wondering what advocacy we could do to get that going again.
Yeah, look, in response, unfortunately, the funding has stopped, and that's the fallout of why this concession has stopped. Look, we engage directly with Te Whiti Ora. We have sort of retail opportunities there with them. We promote the use of the services for staff and patients alike. But I guess as or if or when funding were to become available, we'd be ready to switch that back on, as soon as possible. It's just obviously central government challenges at the moment and navigating those.
Thank you.
Philip.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a random question, really. With the field days coming up this week, I'd just be interested to know, and I'm not sure how many e-buses we do have in service, but are there going to be any e-buses being promoted, used at the field days this year?
Through the chair, and in response, Councillor Phillip. Look, Waikato Regional Council has endorsed the use of the brand to support transport to the field days, as it's a commercial event, and underpinned by our special events policy. We don't, contribute. What we do is staff time and the like. In terms of electric vehicles and presence of those, this year Waikato Regional Council has got a slightly different focus on what we're promoting at the field days, of which public transport isn't at the fore. However, that said, we always are a part of that stand in promoting, particularly with Mystery Creek, and on that Friday, Saturday, that sort of more urban centric audience, we will have all our collateral there and, promoting as much as we can in the bounds of what we're able to this year, with the focus being on a slightly different topic, if that makes sense, in terms of Waikato Regional Council. But our buses will be visible, but they won't actually be the EVs.
Thanks, Trudy. Okay, Kana and Trudy, no more questions. We've got a resolution that the report operations update be received. Can I have a mover and a second for that? Thanks, Claire, and a seconder. Yep, thank you, Maxine. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, we go on to the safety, road safety report. Brian.
Thank you, Chair. We'll take the report as read, but I'll offer up some framing comments for conversation. So this is the report that's looking at the Waikato's road safety performance and provides some information on road safety policies, campaigns and education initiatives. So the first point there in this report is that the Waikato has historically and continues to be overrepresented in road safety trauma statistics. It's really sort of quite telling, I suppose, that we consider that the Waikato has 17% of all road deaths nationwide, with only 10% of the population. And whilst we can see in the graph there, part of paragraph 7, graph 1 there, is that there has been a reduction in road deaths across the country and also in the Waikato, is that we're still certainly overrepresented in terms of the number of deaths that occur in this region. There's a graph there, also graph 2, which sort of talks about the percentages of road users who are killed on Waikato roads. And we can see there the vast majority of those are drivers. So, and I guess, look, despite our ongoing efforts and despite the admirable efforts, I suppose, of the Waikato District Road Policing Unit, who have some of the best statistics in the country in terms of their efforts, we are still not trending in the right direction. So in response to this, what we're looking to do at Waikato Regional Council in conjunction with our colleagues and our road safety partners and across the district councils, is we'll be looking to evolve our road safety strategy. So in 2026, we'll commence work on the revision and updating of our road safety strategy and action plan, and with the focus on practical evidence-based initiatives delivered in the context of the SAFE system. And it will have, as I said, a heavy focus on collaboration with our road safety partners across the region. We already have what I would regard as a pretty good SAFE system strategy in the Waikato. This is an evolution of that, with some really sort of hard-nosed focus on some of the things that we've been doing and what we need to do, I suppose. There's an item in the report there around speed limit reversals, and I won't dwell on this, but just in support of the conversation that we've just had in this committee. The issue, I suppose, that we've got is that one of the things that our strategy will be advocating for, that there are certain things that are outside the control of Waikato Regional Council and our partners, and those things are controlled by central government in Wellington. And so the advocacy piece that we've spoken about is absolutely vital in that, on speed limits and other matters to do with road safety outcomes. There's an item in the report which talks about Waikato Regional Council road safety education programs. And again, we've been looking really hard at what we've been doing in this space. We can see some things that are effective. Others we see are not as effective. And the approach will be moving forward that we will develop a framework and some guidelines around how we engage in those programs and what we actually do, with a view to actually getting a return on our investment in those, more so than perhaps what we've done, and learning from the stuff that we've seen as well. A couple of examples, I suppose, of those. There's one, with an item in the report there talking about young road users and the Reuben the Road Safety Bear program. Now, Reuben's been around since 1997. We view that as being a highly effective way of educating younger people on the issues to do with road safety. But what we also see with that is that we want to be updating, I think, the messaging that Reuben delivers, but also looking to do more with more interactive online type stuff. We want to include more Te Reo Mare resources into the program, and make sure that we collaborate with our district council partners to make sure we're hitting the targeted audiences for that program. Reduce the risk. I'm not sure members may or may not be aware that we've had a reduce the risk social media platform for a little while now. We've looked really hard at what that's been delivering, and we've taken the decision that we will not continue with that social media platform in its current form, and we'll be looking at what we can do with that moving forward, because what we've seen with that, I think, is what I would regard as not having necessary impact or growth to warrant further investment. And the stats that we've got show sort of low engagement, so that's when we're looking to stop. In a similar vein, we've had an arrangement with ProRider, and ProRider supply motorcycle maintenance courses. And whilst we understand that vehicle maintenance is an element of road safety, what we've seen with that program is that there's insufficient data and reporting to effectively measure the impact of ProRider's motorcycle maintenance courses on road safety outcomes, and we're looking to discontinue that one as well. Just wanted to just mention Fleet Day, which is coming up on the 30th of July. That is an initiative that Waikato Regional Council started some 12 years ago in an attempt to actually bring to the fore road safety with fleet managers and how we actually drive for work. This event has grown quite significantly, and in recent years we've partnered, and eRoad, a private company, have been essentially taken over the event. But it's an opportunity for us to get in there and actually have conversations about road safety, and I will be presenting at the event this year out at Mystery Creek, and having a conversation around sort of road safety outcomes for driving for work, which is a real opportunity. We mentioned field days before. So Waikato Regional Council, along with the other road safety partners, led by NZTA, and including New Zealand Police, Ministry of Transport and ACC, will be having a road safety stand at field days. So we'll be part of that and delivering some of the messages around road safety with the Waikato context. And one last one there, just our engagement with our regional road safety coordinators across the region, looking to really ramp that up and make that more meaningful. And so those forums that we hold with our road safety coordinators and NZTA, trying to get more value out of those. And the last item there, Chair, is that members will be aware that there's a safe system workshop after this meeting today, which I'll be facilitating. So I'll stop there and open up for questions.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Kevin?
Yeah, just leveraging off our earlier agenda item on the speed limit reversals, I think it is mission critical for this committee to maintain our advocacy role in this, particularly around road safety. And this region has been overrepresented forever. Deaths and serious injuries. If I recall back to my earlier career, we trade places with the Bay of Plenty in Canterbury, not in a race you want to win. I would be interested to look in terms of supporting that advocacy and taking a baseline on the reversals, the corridors that have been reversed, on what the crash rate is, the death and serious injury rate is, and then seeing what happens going forward. It would be my strong desire that nobody becomes a victim of this to prove a point. That would be a tragedy we all know, but I suspect that is what's going to happen. But I guess my question is, are we able to look at some of the corridors, particularly the ones we advocated strongly to retain? And I know some of them it makes sense to increase, but look at what the difference is going forward.
Through the chair and in response, Councillor Taylor, one of the things that we have been talking about is actually making sure that we're monitoring the performance of those roads that have had their speed limits increased as part of this most recent process. We know that on average at a population level, that there's research indicates that there is a clear connection between increases in average travel speed and road trauma outcomes. It'll be up and down on a road by road basis, but on average, the research is quite clear about that. So whilst we've seen reductions in road trauma due to decreases in speed limits, generally speaking, the converse will apply when we increase the speed limits as well. But certainly monitoring that will be a thing that we're interested in, yes.
Andrew?
Just a quick comment on that one. Would you like us to start that reporting within this report to you going forward?
My concern is particularly around some of the corridors that we have advocated for to remain at a lower speed limit, and that's not all of them. I mean, let's be realistic. Some of them arguably could have gone back up and have, but my concern is that with a blanket speed limit reversal on a lot of these corridors, we leave ourselves open to increased trauma, and it would be, I think, in everyone's interest to understand what is actually happening. So baseline at the lower speed, 6-month, 12-month review. I'm not suggesting we need to look at it at every committee meeting because that's too short a timeline, but looking at trends and patterns. And if there is a trend and pattern showing an increase in trauma, and the only thing that's changed is the speed limit, then to my mind, that points in a direction that we need to pay attention to.
Andrew?
I guess following on from that, it's always really interesting as to collecting data and how we use it, and lifting the bonnet and looking underneath the data, because where are the accidents happening? Are they happening in the same places? What are the, what does it mean? And the thing for me is when we talk about our population versus the number of accidents, well, we're the gateway from Auckland for a starter. So I'm keen to understand also, is it local people? Is it a mix of people? Where are we overrepresented? Because other regions may not have the through traffic that we have. So I'm just trying to get my head around that as well. And it's the old saying, just because there's a white line down the middle of the road doesn't mean that you can just pass. you know, there's a certain amount of what is actually causing the accidents, and is it driver behaviour or is it our roads? You know, like I just really I'm trying to take a pragmatic approach here, because yeah, we don't want people to die on our roads, but people have choices. You know, they make a choice sometimes, don't they? And it's the innocent people that get caught up in this. But I'm just really interested in how the data can be really, we can drill down to really appreciate what it is that we're trying to fix. Because reducing speeds, carte blanche, is not necessarily the answer. That's just the way I sort of see it.
So through the chair, in response to your questions, Mayor Wilcox, so there's a range of things that are at play here, as you've rightly indicated. This afternoon's workshop on the safe system, I think, should be quite informative around that space, because we know that there are many things that lead to a crash. And we also know that there is not one silver bullet that will actually prevent all that occurring. You need to do many things in a joined up way, is the answer, I think. In terms of the data, yes, I agree with you. I would like to be delving down into a bit more into the data to get some of those sort of insights in that. We do know that the predominant crash that's leading to fatalities in the Waikato is male driver. I'm not sure about the age category, but it is on the 100 km/h open road network. And so there's some work, I think, to do around that. And if you talk to Jeff Penno from Waikato Police, he certainly has strong views around some of those things as well, backed up on his experience too. So there's a lot in that, but this afternoon's workshop may be helpful. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Mayor Lynn?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to tautoko what Kevin had said earlier, and I love the term mission critical. I could not agree more. But maintaining that advocacy is, I think, vitally important, not just from a committee point of view, but also at our own council levels as well. And it's certainly something that we'll continue to do. The thing that I guess leaves me concerned always with the data and the stats, I know that we have to measure deaths and we have to measure injuries. It's the near misses and the bits that don't make the stats that we see increases in behaviour, especially during the holiday periods. And you can't measure those. You can't measure them. So because you can't measure them, that's why it's important to keep listening to your communities and the people that live in these places. And before Andrew came along, we had a public meeting in Te Puru in Thames. We had about 150 people there, and every single one of them was saying we need safer speeds on the Thames Coast Road, and because parts of that Thames Coast Road are 100 kilometres an hour. And if you know the Thames Coast Road, that's just nuts. There's nowhere on that road that you can safely do 100 kilometres an hour. And Mayor Adrienne says that people have choices. I agree with that completely. But the police and the authorities need to have something to hold people accountable on. And if it's 100 kilometres an hour and somebody's driving stupidly at 80 kilometres an hour, they've got nothing to hold them to account with. So it's a mixture of those things, I think. I'd be interested too to see some of the data on the makeup of those drivers. I don't know how easy it is to do, but the main point of this is just tautoko what Kevin said earlier. I'm 100% behind that. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mayor Lynn. Jeanette?
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Just building on what Mayor Adrienne has said as well, yes, it would be very interesting to know if that was through traffic. But also just coming through this report, there's a lot of information on who and where, but not the why. So just building on that, because it's very hard to sort of understand, engage whether the programs that are in place, how effective they are if we don't know what the why is, the cause. If it's alcohol or drugs or, it would be really good to drill down into that information a bit more.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, just in response to that, as I was saying earlier, that it's really hard to get down to a single cause for a crash. it's rare that there's one cause that's led to a crash. There's often multiple, almost every case, there's multiple causes that have led to the crash. And one thing I will say about speed, just to round out that conversation as well, is that speed will not be a cause in every crash, but it will determine the outcome of every crash, because it's the energy in the crash that impacts on people's bodies involved in that crash that determines whether it's a death or a serious injury, or, as Mayor Salt points out, a minor injury or a near miss type of thing. So there's a whole range of things there at play. So it's not a simple, straightforward thing, but I take your point.
David?
Oh, sorry. Thank you for the report. When I looked at the graph on page 183, which is the road fatalities year to date, comparing the different regions, what struck me about that is, to me, with my eyeball, it's more a graph of kilometres travelled per region. So I'd be very interested to have that graph normalised, for want of a better word, per kilometre travelled, so that we can see what the effective death rate is.
Yeah, so again, through the chair, I need to apologise to you, because the report that's somehow we've managed to attach the previous report from a December committee meeting, and I think you made the same comment to me at that particular meeting as well. And the answer is that you can break this data down in a whole range of different ways, and one of them is road fatalities per billion vehicle kilometres travelled, and so that. And I do touch on that, I think, in the Safe System workshop this afternoon again, but that's a way to look at it. But yeah, we can do that for sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Angela?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the report and good discussion so far. Yeah. Just around speed and safety cameras. Probably a question for Andrew. In your report coming up, is there any rationale where your safety cameras will be placed in regards to high crash rates within our network?
Are you talking to mobile safety cameras or the fixed safety cameras?
Either.
So fixed are effectively, at the moment, we're inheriting in that changeover process, inheriting them from New Zealand Police. There's very limited budget for new safety cameras at this point, but there are some going in at high priority areas around the country, definitely based on where the observed speed is on average than the posted limit. In terms of the mobile safety cameras, which I think is it's about 2,000 locations around the country that are being scoped, and that is one of the criteria, alongside many others, including where can you safely park the vehicle so that it's able to be, visible but not hazard in itself. So multi-criteria going into the sites.
So are you saying then that high crash areas will be more of a priority for safety cameras?
It will be one of the criteria. Yeah, I can flick you the exact terms that we've got on the website for that one.
Thank you.
Maxine?
Yeah, just on those safety cameras, and I know you're going to come to it in your report, but when we think about speed and putting those limits up again, it's all very well to do that, but if you do nothing else, of course you're going to get the outcomes that we're seeing, and that will stay the same in Hamilton until we have either reduce those speeds again or put in safety cameras. And we've talked about point-to-point cameras that capture the length of time it takes you to get from here to there, and therefore measure your speed. Where is that progress happening? And I guess, is that something that's still not going to be captured by your 2,000 locations of movable vehicles?
So the point-to-point cameras, we do have some of those being established. Know of one in the Waikato and two in the Bay of Plenty. but they are very limited in terms of the funding that's available for those. So they are going to the, I guess, where, as I mentioned, we've observed the highest occurrences of a much higher speed being maintained through those areas. So one being the Matata Straits, if you know, north of Whakatane there. I think 47% of the drivers through that area were speeding. So thus the point-to-point camera is going in that location. We've got another one up Pōkeno. So these are, you know, in 100-kilometre areas generally. And it doesn't mean that, you know, the program won't expand in future.
Yeah, that's a bit disappointing to hear, especially in terms of Waikato being the highest death rate for these on our roads, and mostly that's happening on our state highways. That's correct, is it?
So it's on the 100-kilometre-hour open road network, whether they be state highways or local roads. Just a comment just generally around speed cameras, if I might, Chair. What the research indicates is those covert mobile speed cameras are the most effective in terms of for general deterrence in terms of average speed across a network. The point or the fixed point safety cameras are good for dealing with a particular safety issue at a point on the network, particularly if they're well signed. The point-to-point cameras, though, they are, to mine, they are a very fair speed camera system because they apply over a length of road, and it's the average travel speed. So if you've made the choice to travel above the limit over that period of where those cameras are, which will be well signed, then you should be fined.
And I just, the last thing I would just comment is just because there's a lot of people speeding in one area doesn't necessarily say that that's where this point-to-point should be. You know, could that also be confused with how you might increase your revenue?
Just to be clear, the revenue doesn't come to us. So I'm happy to do a bit of digging and find out what goes into the decisions about where to place those point-to-points. I'll come back to you with that.
Thank you. That would be really helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Claire. Hello.
Thank you, Chair. Just on another angle, you know, there's a lot of talk on the speed, gender and road conditions, etc., etc. One thing that can't be measured is drivers' ability, which to me points to education. And one of the stats I heard recently was that young drivers now have there is a zero tolerance of drugs and alcohol up to 20 years of age. And this has reduced the crash stats in that age demographic by 50%. So that's a real positive. And it's one area I feel we should put a lot more emphasis on.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, and then no more comments or questions. We've got a resolution here that the report road safety be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Thank you, Jeanette. Moved, and second, Andrea. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Brian. Andrew. Ready for you, Andrew?
Cool. Yeah, we've got a presentation to pull up. As always, we've covered off a couple of the slides already, but feel free to let me know if there's any questions as we go through, or feel free to hold to the end as well. Happy either way. So safety cameras. This covers our mobile safety camera updates. So being deployed from mid-May, I haven't heard or had an update as to whether we've had any rolled out in the Waikato yet. I know we were starting in Auckland. Unmarked SUVs with trailers being added later in the year as well. And they'll be visible but not signposted or marked. So the goal, in keeping with our discussion just now, is to reduce speed-related crashes and injuries. And the cameras can be deployed anywhere nationwide at any time. Our provider, AccuSensus, has or is developing depots around the country. These to be stored in when not in use. They are speed detection only. And as I mentioned, there's no incentives for the provider nor for NZTA in terms of from fines that come to us. The police will continue to, do their usual enforcement as well on the network in terms of issuing notices. Jump to the next slide. Got one on national road maintenance. For a second there, I thought I was in control of the slide somehow, and starting to get nervous. So over 2,000 lane kilometres of road renewed this summer, which is fairly similar to recent years. And an increase has been on road rebuilding under the current NLTP to improve that long-term network quality. We've received some really positive feedback in particular areas, and we've had favourable weather, which has helped with that until now. But luckily, we've been through the bulk of our program before the crazy April rain. Asphalt resurfacing will continue into about now, really, now that the temperatures have dropped right away. And we'll be moving now to routine maintenance, the 24-hour pothole response, and managing the impacts of weather events. So I think when I was sitting in this room on Thursday for the Future Proof Committee, as I was sitting here, we were closing gorges in the Bay of Plenty, and Whakatane, Waka and Waimana Gorge were both closed for flooding that day, and one of the detour routes as well. So things are starting to get a little crazy out there again on our networks. Traffic management as well. We've got the new risk-based traffic management being rolled out now, and procurement underway for our new integrated delivery contracts, which will take quite a bit of time, and I'm happy to speak to those at a future committee as well when we're not in the tender process. We've also obviously WorkSafe is hosting the Road Cone Hotline, which is the world's first hotline. That's a web form, which, if you've listened to a bit of the news lately, there's been quite a flurry of reports in the first couple of days for that. And obviously we provide responses to that too, where they fall on state highways, and I'm sure councils are involved in some of those queries as well. We move to the next slide.
Andrew, do you just want to ask the questions now, Jeanette or Angela, or do you want to wait until Andrew's finished? Or was it something on the last slide?
It was on the last slide,
Yep,
so happy to
yep,
wait
yep.
for the end.
Oh, no, you can ask. Andrew's
Let's
happy.
just go. Yeah.
Just, I had noted in your report that, the dollars from the safety cameras goes to the government's consolidated fund. And then we've just talked about no funding for more safety cameras, and that just seems illogical to me. What is the government policy thinking behind that? Do you know?
I could come back to you on that. The government consolidated fund isn't anything to do with NZTA. It'll be broader within Treasury somewhere, I imagine.
I just wonder if that was something the committee could advocate on. Because it seems mad that that the source of a funding can't have some portion of it come back to put more cameras in. And
You're suggesting it would go to the National Land Transport Fund to help with funding of cameras.
I'm just trying to see if there's any possibility of some sort of common sense in that.
I mean, we can get an explanation of why it's set up, how it is, because I imagine it's legislative and very difficult to change, but it could still form part of your advocacy as a group.
What the logic is behind that, and it just doesn't make sense. I'd like to know why.
Yeah.
And if it is something which we could advocate on, depending on the why.
Happy to capture that as an action if we can.
Thank you.
Angela?
Yeah, just echo that as well. Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Hey, Andrew, just a question on your safety cameras. My understanding was that they were quite state of the art, would detect more than just speed. So they'd look at seat belts, distractions, cell phone use, etc., etc. Could you just answer why we're only focusing on speed?
They can detect that. And the reasons would be a mix of funding and what they're actually able to monitor and prosecute against.
Okay, so in order to enable those other things to be prosecuted, what does it need, a law change or private?
I don't know if
privacy
it will change exactly. That's an assumption, but I imagine the funding is a big part of it too. So we've got the right provider in that sense, and that they do have the technology that's able to monitor more than speed, but speed is the only thing we are monitoring.
Okay, so I wonder with that previous action point about funding, whether allowing some of that funding to be expanded from just looking at speed to looking at distractions added to that action point as well. And I just had a question on your road cone hotline. Just wondering if there's been any increase in aggravation towards road workers. People look at a road cone and associate it with hold up, etc. Just wondering how the road workers are going, if they've noticed any increase in aggravation or threats.
No, I haven't heard of anything recently. If we saw an increase, I imagine it would be through those summer months. There's a lot more going on the network, and we do continue to monitor that. But we also have campaigns like the Road Worker of the Month and even week through that busy period too. So we've got some ways we are advocating for road workers.
Okay. And just on that, when you're doing full road closures and then there's detours, from a safety point of view for road workers, obviously, there's no moving vehicles. And have you noticed much of an increase in their safety at work? Or it's not really something that you've...
There was a zero harm stat I'm sharing it that LGNZ was at around the Tiro to Waiuru, and there have been the zero stats around. It definitely helps because there is not a lane with traffic that is out of their control. Absolutely, I would expect safety.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Just a question I had just around the cameras and the location of them. Are they going to be on local collector roads as well, or is it still sticking to the highways?
My understanding is both, and that we've had a team nationally working with every council around locations so that the provider has a list of those 2,000 locations where they can decide to deploy to.
Yeah, and I guess the other challenge for parking cameras, your mobile, is, especially in rural areas, is people's driveways. So there's, they can't just go everywhere. There will be places where they some of our roads they won't be able to just go anywhere because of people's driveways and impacting them. But good to understand, because I've had quite a bit of comment around, well, why can't the cameras go on our local roads? So some of those collector roads, it could be quite useful. Yeah, thanks.
Andrew,
Continue.
happy to carry on.
That's okay. No, this is what I needed. This one's just around reporting on ministerial expectations. So thanks to those that have provided their reporting in good time. Next scheduled reporting is July, which is for Q4. And we're starting to seek input from councils that are not participating with reporting as well around how to improve our engagement for Q4. If we move on, just an update that would have gone out probably to your CEs recently, just around the continuation of the emergency works funding. It's been long on this, but obviously as we get towards the new NLTP, that policy again will be reviewed. Move to speed limits. I don't think I need to go through any of this unless there's any outstanding questions. I'll look for microphones. Come on. I think could probably go on from the slide. Thank you. I'm into our Waikato updates. We'll move on to the next one, please. Waikato specific maintenance. So 504.8 million in the NLTP for maintenance in the 3-year period. A lot of that for the pothole prevention fund, but also state highway operations makes up 138 mil as well. And we, as I mentioned before, we've had a focus on rebuilds, which has meant actually in the Waikato there's been a lower total volume than the previous NLTP for lane kilometres of road being resealed. Move to the next one. This is our next one, please. Yeah.
Working on that.
A little lag. Yeah. I was just going to share a story
Come
about.
up here, it's working on my one.
If I talk about Ruben, the road safety bear, for a minute or so. I do have a friend that was at university that had a part-time job as Ruben, the road safety bear, and his nickname is still Ruben, 20 plus years on. So just so you know the impact of your bear. This one, there's some notable projects up there, Rokahia, Tapoi, Cambridge Expressway. Obviously, we've had some major resealing ongoing there. Got a right-hand turn bay, which I haven't seen yet, Waimakariri Road, State High 5 over to Rotorua. That should be in place now. And ongoing Kaimai works, closures, which is continuing to happen throughout the winter season as well, largely at night time. And State Highway 1B Telephone Road, we are planning for a community opening of that road, which has been in the works, for 3 years plus. It'd be nice to get that one off the list and not be reporting on that particular crossing, which I'm sure Lisa's heard about as well. We move to the next one, Tiro to Waihuru. So we are planning for the next season for those south of Hamilton. So we do have some final surfacing works going on in those locations listed there, and some full maintenance and rebuild, the big ones, which will be Taupo to Turangi. We're still working through the methods and the timings for that late this year before we can start communicating with the community on that. Tiro Township and Tokoroa Township as well, which will be working with South Waikato District very closely on, as we have in the past on a lot of those other longer sections. Mike's on yet? Go to the next one, which is our local speed reversals. Again, I won't highlight anything here other than we do have some limited funding now for future speed reviews. So this is now managed at a regional level now that we've implemented the rule and the reversals. So we are looking to those that have been raised as a high priority through the community over the last 6 months or so. Len, definitely Kuatunu, Kaho, Simpsons Beach are a part of those, and we're looking at how much we can extend to up the Thames coast as well, and Karangahaki, Waikino, Waihi, part of that, as well as a couple of marae lower speed zones. So we're working with quite limited funding for regional speed reviews now. So on an annual basis, we'll be adding to a priority list and working through that, because effectively something else has to shift if we decide to prioritise it. And there's a bit of cost involved when we are having to consult as part of the way we undertake changes under the new rule. Okay, we'll move on. Bronze. So Cambridge to Pieriri. We lodged applications under the Repeal Act in December. Public submissions were invited March to April. We're going through a separate process for a wildlife permit and archaeological authority. Should be being lodged mid-2025 through DOC. And that's progressing independently of our fast track consenting process. Property negotiations still underway, but detailed design is also underway for 2 sections of the project, and the third's starting in late 2025, and we're doing some geotech at the moment. So first sod hasn't been turned, but there's certainly soil being moved from the geotechnical investigations that people might see on the side of the road as they drive down the existing State Highway 1 there at Karapiro. We will have a community drop-in session planned for late October as well. It'll be informational rather than consultative, because we will be at a place where we are progressing pretty quickly there toward the late 2026 spade in the ground, hopefully. Move on. Southern Links. Keep throwing a photo of me in here, which I'm not that keen on. We are still preparing the investment case currently, including that Greenwood Street Kakatea Drive intersection as well, so that it doesn't become a pinch point in what is eventually built Southern Links corridor. and hopefully we'll be in a position to communicate timeframes later in the year once that's been to our board. We have something on Southern Links, don't we, Phil, that we need to mention? Is this now? Yeah, cool. So at the Future Proof Committee the other day, there's a report that went up to the governors around the potential for a network plan for the Southern Links wider, broader area to help show how local roads can and should connect into the eventual road of national significance. That was supported by the committee as a plan, and the thought was that it would land on the RTC agenda today for that resolution to add it as a variation into the RLTP for that same reason we talked about before, helping it elevate as a priority in terms of consideration for funding for the network plan itself. Is there anything I've missed there?
No, that was it. Other than when we get to the end of Andrew's report, there's a resolution on that, which is to set an action on staff to provide a report similar to the one you've seen today on Tahui at the September meeting, because we need a decision of the committee and you need a report to do that. So that's the action that you'll see on the resolution shortly.
At which point we may have more that we can discuss around Southern Links at that time in September as well. We've still got a few months to get through with the investment case progressing. Move to the last slide, I think it is, which is just a bit of a summary of our infrastructure delivery, recent upcoming work. So the roundabout that you will have all seen, completion expected by August in terms of all the planting, removal of the site offices, etc., and a fully functional roundabout, which is obviously fully functional in terms of its use currently. Ongoing repairs in the Coromandel recovery program, but some of them nearing completion. Pepe Stream Bridge will continue to, I think, talk about that in the next couple of years at this committee as that project progresses. The idea would be to, we're in the procurement phase at the moment, but a late 2026 construction start is the idea. And we have some other bridge replacements around the region, particularly in Coromandel as well, that we'll continue to talk with Len and his constituents on. And a few safety improvements continuing that remain funded in the NLTP as well for the Piereri to Taupo area, State Highway 1 and the Mamaku Road, as well as State Highway 29 Piereri right through to the base of the Kaimai. I notice Mayor Len's got his hand up as well.
Mayor Len.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Andrew. Always enjoy the reports that you send through, so well done. My question is specifically around Ruamahonga Bay, and I'm sure you know that part of the Thames Coast Road. We know that going back to December, when the draft report was done for the NLTP, we had some funding set aside in that, and this committee was absolutely fantastic in their support of the Coromandel trying to recover from the events of the storms of 23 and rebuild, not just to put everything back the way it was, but build resilience into the Coromandel roading network because of its vital importance in terms of economic activity and people just getting from A to B. The numbers back there, and I've just been looking at the report again, we had $811 million that this committee supported as going through in that recommendation. We know that when the change of government happened and the NLTP was rewritten, this committee went back with a proposed revised number of 248 million. And when the final decisions were made, that number had gone to zero. Now, we also know that some of that money's been moved into the Coromandel Recovery Program and to the Potholes Program. What I'm a bit confused about and what I'd like to know specifically, and please don't think you have to answer today, if you could come back to me, Ruamahonga Bay, every time it rains, a decent rainfall, that cliff falls on the road. Now, it's happened probably 3 times in the last couple of months when we've had rainfall. we've got some video from back in the early 23 of that cliff falling down with cars parked almost underneath it and people videoing that cliff. So I get concerned that one day somebody's going to get hurt on that. Can you give us any insight as to when that might be addressed?
I couldn't right now, Marilyn, but thanks for bringing it to my attention. Not necessarily an area I'm overly familiar with, other than I've heard a lot about the slips, you know, in recent times, just in the recent rainfall we've had as well. So happy to come back to you on that one. If it isn't in the, you know, funded projects through NLTP at the moment, then I would imagine it's probably not there until we revisit in 2027.
Oh, that's fine, Andrew.
But
if you could come back
have
to
a
me.
dig.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Andrew?
Yeah, happy to take any other
Any
questions.
other questions for Andrew? If not, thanks very much, Andrew, for a great report. Again, the work that's been done, especially that I experienced between Hamilton and Taupō's, just fresher breath air now that we've gone through all the works. It's just the local road works there that they seem to be doing.
We'll go put some more in at the end of the year.
Not finishing on the local roads, so they'll go over about 100 times.
Thank
so
you.
we've got a resolution here that report regional New Zealand Transport Agency Waka Kotahi update be received, and then the other part was what Phil was talking about, is that the staff prepare a report that considers a variation to the Waikato Regional Land Transport Plan and for the Hamilton Southern Links Network Plan, and this is to be presented to the September 2025 meeting of the committee for consideration. So can I have a mover? Thank you, Claire, and a seconder. Thank you, Kevin. Or second, Maxine. Yep. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Lisa, how are you?
Excellent.
Have you
thank
got Peter coming? Or no, he's not. No. I'll just turn on your mic. Yep. It might be a bad battery on that one.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you for inviting us to come along. Kiwirail does enjoy coming and presenting you with the updates on what we're doing on our network. And of course, we are tied together with Te Huia and the regional rail services. If we want to move to the next slide, you would have all seen it, of course, and heard the announcements, but we now have a fully funded ARNIP for the 3-year triennium of 24 to 27, which is very pleasing. It only gives us 2 years of planning in advance, as we're at the end of the first year. So that's disappointing, but we're hoping to remedy that in the next budget bid. In addition to that, there is some overdue renewals money for the metro networks, and we're in the process of doing that planning and looking to finalise the split between the Auckland and Wellington networks. In all likelihood, 99% certainty, more money will go to the Wellington metro network, because of course there isn't a significant amount of funding into the Auckland network already for upgrade works as a result of City Rail Link. So it won't be a 50-50 split, but it also will help us to maintain the resilience of the network in Auckland, which is critically important. All of that essentially has come with an ongoing pita of Kiwirail delivering efficient, effective and responsive public services, and efficiency is obviously paramount to get more from every dollar that we get given, and that's a focus for us. We are in the middle of a transformation program, which is helping us to understand how we can deliver that. Move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so essentially we're now planning the full 10-year tranche. The reason that it's taken so long 1 year in is because we actually have been going backwards and forwards with Minister of Transport, previously Minister Brown, around the ARNIP and what it needs to look like in a longer term funding sense, and also in an outcome and achievement sense, value for money. So we will have, by the end of June or possibly early July, the Minister of Rail Minister for Rail, will announce the last version, the final version of the ARNIP will be published, and it will be the triennium version. There's a few variations in there. We are still seeing the same issues that we have seen most industry sees, which is really a lot around sort of supply chain disruptions, inflationary problems, geopolitical, all of those play in. We obviously have a significant amount of our advanced materials coming from overseas, and we're managing those as best we can by looking at long lead procurement, etc. And that's what the ARNIP gives us benefit for. So having that planning period enables us to make sure that we do have the materials on hand to deal with unexplained events and unexpected events, as well as anything that we have planned in our work bank. The quantum of overdue renewals in Auckland and Wellington has been an ongoing and challenging problem. The rolling contact fatigue that sort of became a critical issue in the Auckland network. We have a rolling program of managing what we call rail network renewals now, and that is continuing to be funded. And we have a team that is constantly looking and measuring, and we have equipment going through and taking a look at any issues that exist to get ahead of that problem. The ongoing funding for overdue renewals is really critical, and we've thankfully got that for the next 2 years, so we're very grateful for that. Resources, we have a lot of challenge around retaining labour, particularly that labour that can go off either overseas, which is these big projects over in Australia. We've certainly lost people to that, and also consultancy services, where particularly around things like signalling, etc. Most of that is driven from international vendors, and we do find that there are challenges with retaining resources in-house to be able to respond and to make sure that we can resource any major programs that we've got. So we're doing as much as we can with planning in advance and managing a work bank where we have a good view of the upcoming workload. Next slide, thank you. This is just a snapshot of the key, I guess, renewal type activities. There is, of course, also minor works funding, which is constant in the network. So these are just the planned works at this stage. That regional view will be fully published by early July. As I mentioned, a number of discussions with the Minister of Transport since the last budget, since the previous budget, have meant that we've changed the program somewhat. So this is a little bit out of date, but I'll be able to present a more regional view and also surrounding regions which impact as well. So move on, please. Okay, so the upgrade program, this actually is my real day job when I'm not filling in for Angus. So pleased to say that Papakura to Pukekohe electrification was fully complete and the line was open in February. So that's a great achievement, and all, I believe, touching wood, it seems to be going well. The Drury rail stations, there we are well into construction on the Drury station, and Pairata station is not far behind. So we've been in construction since December, and those two stations are progressing really well. They will be open in early 2026, with construction finishing in 25. So the commissioning and I guess handing over to operations, being Auckland Transport and Auckland One Rail, will happen at the completion of construction. Ngākaroa station is proving to be a little bit more challenging. We are heading towards procurement. The biggest issue that we have there is, and actually with our colleagues at NZTA, we're working very closely together. It's the entrance to the station from State Highway 22, and it's actually a property problem. So we have a very challenging situation with having to get property in order to be able to commence work. And we're working through that now with the various mechanisms on acquisition, but also on leasing land to be able to get early access. It's not very early now, but earlier access so that we can hopefully have construction complete by the middle of 2026. So that station is, we've also got a first gas pipeline going through the middle of the site, which needs to be relocated. So that is also proving a little challenging because, again, needs property and needs first gas sign off. So that one is a little bit more wait and see, but the first two stations are moving along really nicely, and we're happy. We did a lot of early works on those sites to get the land settled. So that is paying off in the construction program. Wirrikī Park, the third main is now commissioned. So we are in the handover phase with operations. Expect that early our financial year 26, which is July, hopefully we'll be able to have trains running regularly on that. We have had test trains running through there. The idea of that line is that it helps decouple the freight regional rail services from the metro network, enabling some increased frequency and priority for those services, which is fantastic. It will also, the third main will also be available for metro trains when we have maintenance required on the other lines. So it does stand as a backstop for that. That's not its intended main purpose. But yeah, trying to ease the bottleneck is really critical, and will be very critical when City Rail Link comes online. So happy with that. We're just finalising. I think we've now achieved practical completion, and we're just finalising the handover. Next slide, thank you. Now, I was told that this was a topic that everybody might want to talk about, so I've added some slides in, and happy to. I can't talk to you really very knowledgeably about this project. I know about it and I'm involved in it, but I'm just getting up to speed with it at the moment. Essentially, we're in the business case stage. The point and purpose behind the business case is to prioritise the Golden Triangle for obvious reasons. 17 million tonnes of customers' freight is moved across New Zealand, and just slightly less than 60% of it goes through the Golden Triangle. So it's a pretty significant and important part of the network, both for us, but also for New Zealand and for the port companies. Rail, we know, is the lowest low carbon form of transport, even with the upcoming electric vehicles and heavy vehicles. We think that is not going to, we will also modernise the fleet over that time, and we expect rail to continue to be a carbon beneficial mode of transport. It also provides, obviously, resilience and alternatives for customers. We are finding in the anecdotal stuff, which at some stage we should have Adele come along and talk to you. She's our customer and manager, and she is more and more being approached by customers saying, we want to use rail. We need to know how we can use rail, looking to combine road and rail together to get the long distance heavy freight moved on rail, and the shorter distances and so on moved on truck. Combining those together and managing that as an integrated system is really critical, and customers like Coca-Cola, now our fourth biggest domestic customer, because they have an international mandate to reduce their carbon footprint, and they can't do it using road, which is fantastic, hopefully taking some trucks off the road and helping with that maintenance burden as well. We also have, customers who are doing exactly the same thing in much smaller places. So taking freight to a hub like Ruakura and then using trains from there to move their freight through the country. We're looking for a net carbon zero at 2050. That's probably a little bit later than we would have liked, but it's the best that we can do. Rail is a long-term planning exercise, and we do have a new sustainability strategy which will be published this year. So when that comes out, I'll be happy to distribute that around the table. Next slide, thank you. Okay, so the why. We just talked a little bit about the why. Obviously, a really critical part of the country in terms of the volume of freight that goes through and the frequency of services. So that's So that's important to make sure that we do focus on. It's also in the GPS, which means that we are allowed to prioritise initiatives in this area. And obviously we're funded to complete a business case, which we are partway through, and we will expect to have a draft of that business case in the next couple of months available to internally and with key stakeholders to review the next stages and determine the next steps and how we manage this. In essence, the work that we're doing has two parts to it. One is a rolling stock part and modernisation, obviously, of the fleet to manage non-electrified parts of the network. There's also some parts that we're looking at to extend electrification in order. So, for instance, between Auckland and Hamilton would be a key area where you could extend the electrified network and then run battery, so dual mode locos with batteries to further through south through the network and elsewhere. So those options have been considered, and we've gone through all of these little steps here, which you would have seen in your pack, to get ourselves to a point where we are drafting the business case. So there's an awful lot of optioneering and information around what that's going to be. None of it's published quite yet, but happy to provide some more detail at the next meeting, when we will be able to share a lot of what I'd call gory detail, but people say it's fascinating detail around how we've got to the conclusions that we have. What else can I tell you? No, moving on. Okay, so complete the detailed business case by mid-25. That's running a little bit late, but it'll be mid if you take it in a sense of maybe that 3-month circle. That will identify and isolate the best and preferred electric solution and a staged delivery pathway. Mentioning, as I have, that there's two parts of this. One is actually the physical rolling stock, and the other is the infrastructure requirements. Obviously, the rolling stock, you may be aware, Kiwirail's mandate now is to provide funding for rolling stock. So we need to make sales in order to put money away to fund future rolling stock. We may have a chance to do something else, but that's the plan, is that that's kind of where we're headed to immediately, is to try and start some self-sufficiency in that space. I suspect possibly not in time for this, but central government has got this in the GPS, so we're hopeful that they will continue to help us with managing the next stages. As part of the completion of the business case, the funding options associated with those, and we'll be working with the Ministry of Transport, the Treasury and NZTA, who are on our governance boards, to look at the various options and the staging and phasing of that program. So that's really exciting, because we'll finally have something we can put down on paper to say the what, when, where and why. And we should be in a pretty good position to be able to talk about that, get to September. But the budget process is obviously an invitation one. If we're not invited to the budget, then we can't apply. But we are talking to our colleagues from the Treasury and Ministry of Transport now around what that could look like. We also need to do quite a lot of technical work to help inform and get confidence around that preferred option and estimates, etc. So there is probably still a lot of planning time actually needed, probably through another 12 months, I would say, of really detailed planning to, now that we've got our preferred option nearly finalised, there will be quite a lot of work to firm that up and make sure that we've got something that stakeholders and funders can look at to ensure that we get some support for funding as we go through the process. That's me.
Thank you, Lisa. A very informative report, and thank you for coming along today. Andrea.
Thanks. Yeah, no, great. It's always good to get an update on what's happening, and given that my district has the tunnel. Is there anything, and obviously aware of some double tracking that's occurred through now with the electrification and obviously the lack of ventilation at top of the Kaimai tunnel. Obviously, I was lobbied quite a while ago about a proposal to add tunnels there. Where's the thinking at this point around the Kaimai tunnel? Can you give any indication?
Yeah, look, we also had some some information come through and some a group that is interested in looking at alternates for the tunnel. At this stage, it's not anything that Kiwirail is actually funded for. So we've said that we will consider anything that comes through and support where appropriate, but there hasn't been, honestly, it hasn't moved beyond an initial letter. So there isn't progress, is probably what I would say. But we continue to get sound bites from time to time. So I know there's people still working on what could that look like. And I'm not sure where they've got to on funding. So I think probably the first bit was to try and get some feasibility type funding. That's not through Kiwirail, that be through NZTA and other potentially other local mechanisms. But yeah, nothing on our table at the moment.
So I guess you'd almost say it's probably more feasible double tracking to the tunnel and then improving the throughput through is probably the medium term solution, because to put another tunnel in is going to be pretty expensive.
Okay, I'm happy to ask and find out within Kiwirail
if there's any
happening and what any future planning looks like.
Yeah, because I've got a person that's obviously local that was involved in that proposal for second tunnels, and of course he gets in touch with me every now and again, and I said, well, I'm sure people know about it, but the reality is the cost.
Yeah,
I know that the Kaimai tunnel was a real challenge because of water, and it wasn't an easy build. So
yeah, I think it's probably 2 years ago that I last heard anything about it. So I'm not up to speed. If there is any work groups in Kiwirail involved, then I'm not up to speed with that. But I'll certainly ask around and get an update for you.
Great, thank you. And just again acknowledge the work with Kiwirail around the Matamata accident. It's not something we all like to be in, but just importantly build the relationships and find.
I believe the fencing is in progress.
No, it's all happening. Thank you.
Angela?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for your report and the slides as well. Just following on from Adrian's points about the Kaimai tunnel and the electrification. I imagine that before a second tunnel was proposed, that you'd want to get the most out of the current infrastructure, and electrification would enable a lot more efficiencies to take place within the current infrastructure as well. Just on the electrification between Pukekohe and Hamilton, we know that Whangamarino Swamp is a real catch point with limited speeds, etc., and the soil type. So just really interested to see what your initial business case is up with solutions in that regard. And just I understand that our recent JMA meeting with Tainui, that they were quite interested in where this conversation's going as well. Just in regards to electrification and the rail lines through there. So just wanting to keep them in the loop with any discussions as well. I think that's really important. But thank you for the update. I mean, obviously electrification makes complete sense within the Golden Triangle, given the amount of freight that you've said moves through. Please keep coming with the updates as well. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. There's no more questions. Got a resolution here that the report update for Kiwirail be received. Can I have a move? Thank you, Andrea. Seconder. Thanks, David. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. And thanks again, Lisa. Okay, we've 12:30, so we'll have lunch, and then the workshop for the safe system with Brian will be at 1:00. That's okay for those who can attend.
Yeah, I'll just be an apology. I'll be sitting in I've got a online meeting at 1:00, but I'll come in as soon as I can join it.
Yep, that's okay.
And Chair, apologies from me also. I have a commitment at Hamilton City Council.
Okay. So we'll finish with a karakia. Cheers.
Unuhia mai te uru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te hininaro, I te ara takatū. Koia rā I rongo I whakairia ake kia runga, kia tina, Haumie, huie, tākie.
Very good, cheers. Okay, thanks very much, people. Thank you, Andrew.